Well, good afternoon. Hello, Eugene. Welcome to Next. Thank you very much for joining me today for our Pride Month chat on podcast. My name's Andrew. I'm the head of retail HR, and also I'm the chair of their Pride at Next committee. Been here 28 years now. 10 in store and 18 in HR. So quite a long time. I did have a 5-year break in the middle of that, but there we go. Sales consultant to store manager in stores, and a HR advisor to head of retail HR in the head office. So yeah, that's me. I've been a card-carrying member of the gay community since 1990, officially, obviously unofficially, a few years before that maybe. And currently married. What currently? Does that sound right? I am married to my husband. No break, just in case he's listening. I've been with him for 18 years. We've been married since 2014, since we were legally able to get married. So that's a bit about me. Eugene, tell me about yourself.
I'm Eugene Lynch. I am the Positive Voices Manager at the Terrence Higgins Trust. So the Terrence Higgins Trust is the largest HIV and sexual health charity in the UK. And I run a project called Positive Voices. We have about 40 volunteers living with HIV, and we do talks in lots of different types of venues: schools, colleges, universities, workplaces, prisons, anywhere that'll have us, basically, to raise awareness about HIV and to get people to understand the stigma associated with HIV through our own personal stories.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to get into a bit of that as we talk today, and also about our partnership as we go through. So we're obviously at Next. We're in Pride Month. From my perspective, I guess Pride at Next started 4 years ago. Our LGBT plus network. Companies. It was sort of the start of our company's journey to talk about diversity, equality, and inclusion, and we were the first child born out of that sort of process. And I guess really at the heart of it, the key mission was bringing our best selves to work, bringing our whole selves to work. And I think as a gay man, it is hard, because I think we were talking earlier about sort of coming out and how the challenges that you have around that, and sort of identifying as yourself and sort of your realization of who you are, and that can cause you to hide certain parts of yourself because you don't want to show who you are, or you're embarrassed about who you are. And I think that translating into a work environment, seeing that, we wanted to kind of allow people to exist in the workspace by their true selves, really, or their whole selves, more importantly. I guess for us it wasn't an easy start. It was I always thought, when I was first asked to do it, I thought, well, this is great. You know, I've reached a point in my career. I can talk to people. I've got influence, and you know, this is great. This will be great for the community. And I think it's a really hard journey when you need to be selling, I guess, the idea of why this is needed. And I would never have looked at this company and thought this company was homophobic. I'd not really experienced any kind of discrimination as I've grown up through the business. And yet, when I started talking about these things, there were walls started to go up, and conversations. It was like, why do we need this? What's this for? And I think for me, that's been really a kind of a challenge to overcome for sort of setting Pride up, and being, I suppose for me, not hitting any barriers as in my working career, and then having to sort of come across them and people going, well, what's this all about? Why do we need this? So I think that was the starting point. We had a few people. We knew we wanted to be inclusive of all the divisions. Next is a really big company. We started really slow. We worked closely with Stonewall in the start. But yeah, we've grown the network now. It's 618 active members. We've got representation across all the business units. Really strong, I suppose, community representation, connectivity with other networks. You saw some of our newsletters and things that we're producing, and the Google site as well. So we're really proud of the way that I guess it's growing. And one of the things that we're really proud of is our partnership with you as Terrence Higgins. You were our first and current only partner, charity partner. So this is our third year. We've raised a total of £25,000 for your charity. So do you want to sort of tell us about the charity and tell us what good work it does?
Yeah, absolutely. So as well as supporting people living with HIV, we're involved in lots of different types of services. So we provide local sexual health services in different areas around the UK. And in terms of what the partnership that THT and Next has helped us to do, there are three particular areas that are supported by this partnership. Our Living Well program, which supports people living with HIV who need help and support in different ways. So one of the services is a service that was my first kind of touch point with the Terrence Higgins Trust, which is our counselling service. So we have a counselling service for people living with HIV, and it helps you kind of deal with issues that you might be having around your diagnosis, talking to other people, stuff like that. But we also provide counselling to people around their sexual health more generally, their relationship with drugs and alcohol, chemsex, which is a big problem in the community at the moment, and also people working through issues about their gender identity or their sexual orientation more generally. So that's one of the services. Living Well, it covers counselling, and it covers a few other areas as well. Another service that's supported is our helpline, THT Direct. And so once I started to deal with my HIV diagnosis, I started volunteering on the THT Direct helpline as a way to give back. That was back in 2018. We get lots of different types of calls on that helpline. We get calls all the time from people who are living with HIV who need support in some way, and we're able to kind of either give them directly support on, during the call, or we're able to refer them to services or signpost them to other organizations as well. But we also get calls just from the general public who are worried about their sexual health, who are worried maybe about a risk that they might have taken. And so we're able to work through with people and kind of talk to them about their anxieties around certain things and work out whether they need testing and how to access that and stuff as well. And then the third service is our Positive Voices service, which is a service that I manage. And so the support that we get for that service enables us to go out into the community, to go out and speak to young people in schools and colleges and universities. But it's also enabled us recently to expand the number of talks that we do, to bring on more volunteers in lots of different parts of the UK. So we're a much broader service now than we were before. We're reaching about 20,000 people every year, whereas 2 years ago we were reaching about 4,000. So it's really come on leaps and bounds in the last couple of years. And one of the things that we've launched recently is a new program in partnership with a couple of other organizations, the Sophia Forum and CI Squared Bureau. And also we're working in partnership with the National AIDS Trust to deliver HIV awareness sessions in prisons and to support people living with HIV in prison. And that's something that's been a really rewarding and kind of different experience for us as well. So those are just three of the areas that that I've had personal involvement with, where the partnership that we have has made a big difference.
That's amazing. And can you just tell us a bit about sort of how THT started? Because it's got a really, really rich and long history, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
From the community's perspective.
Yeah, so the Pride movement in the UK largely started, in its kind of formal sense in the early 1970s. It was only 10 years later that HIV first started to hit the headlines. The AIDS crisis started to take off, and the Pride movement and the fight to understand and ultimately stop HIV transmission, and also support people living with HIV to access services and not to be discriminated against. Those two fights have gone hand in hand from the 1980s right up until now, and so the Pride movement has really been at the heart of our charity right from the beginning, and even now, if we look at the present. There are lots of things that we still need to do. We need to do things like make sure that people have equal access to services everywhere, and to make sure that things like PrEP can get to the communities that it needs to. Those are some of the fights that are going on right now, which the two movements are still kind of working together on.
Talk to me about PrEP. You mentioned PrEP there, and not a lot of our listeners may understand what that is. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, sure. So PrEP is a drug. It's very similar to the HIV treatment that people like me take. It has two components in it, and what it does is HIV negative people can take it. Everybody could take it on a daily basis, and then some people, depending on the type of sex they have, could take it event-based. And if you take that drug, basically you can't acquire HIV. So people who are having unprotected sex or sex without a condom and taking PrEP won't acquire HIV. So it's a real game changer in terms of making sure we reduce the number of transmissions of HIV. So if you look at the statistics from 2014 to the present, the number of new cases of HIV among gay and bisexual men and other men who have sex with men in particular has been falling rapidly, and that's largely due to the availability of PrEP. And that's something that we need to get to more communities now. So, for example, if you look across England, there are no local authorities in England where there are more than 5 women signed up to a PrEP program. And so the disparity is huge, because in one clinic in London, there's more than 24,000 gay and bisexual men signed up to the program. So that is an area that we need to focus on. We need to make sure PrEP gets to everybody who needs it, not just to gay and bisexual men.
I suppose that is quite a challenge, because, as you say, when an organisation like Terrence Higgins is born out of an epidemic which largely in our visual field was white gay men, and that was how it was targeted, and that was what it was. Even though there were wider cases available, that was where the concentration is, and that has been most of the, I would say, for a lot of people, that is the majority of the movement, is that where that it has been gay men and sex between two men, where Terrence Higgins has needed to exist in that space. But that's not the case, is it? There's many more areas where HIV is prevalent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look globally, there are about 38 million people around the world living with HIV. About 20 million of those are living in Eastern and Southern Africa. And on a global scale, 53% of people living with HIV are women. And that's a statistic that always surprises people. In the UK, about a third of people living with HIV are women. But there are some communities that are impacted more. So gay and bisexual men is one, but black people of African heritage are more likely to be living with HIV than the general population. Black people of Caribbean heritage is about twice as likely. So there are other communities where HIV is having a big effect, and we don't necessarily hear all of those voices equally. And that's something that my project, we're trying to make a big change in. So we're trying to recruit more volunteers from different backgrounds, from different minoritized communities, to make sure that we're more representative of the people who are living with HIV in the UK.
That sounds like a big challenge. So how are you getting over that and reaching those people?
So there's lots of different things that we're doing. We're doing some targeted advertising to try and bring more volunteers on board. We're working with the project that I run is co-produced, so our volunteers help us decide what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So a lot of our great ideas come from our volunteers. We're working together to make sure that our program is the right program, because a lot of the barriers that you were talking earlier on, a lot of these are structural barriers that are put in place, and sometimes it's hard to see them. So what we're saying to people is, how can we change our program to make it more attractive to the people that we haven't been reaching so far? And part of that is about visibility. So we've been recruiting volunteers, bringing them on board, making sure they're visible, making sure that they can act as role models for others. But it's also about going into different parts of the community. We've been recently going in and speaking with religious groups and things like that, in order to be able to make sure that we're talking to the communities where we might actually find people to then recruit as volunteers.
Yeah,
we're also looking at other ways of working, because volunteering is a bit of a privilege sometimes. Not everyone's able to volunteer their time, and so one of the things we're looking at is how do we make sure that we can bring people on board and incentivize them or compensate them for their time as a way to be able to make that program more accessible to more people.
I think you mentioned visibility there, and it is so important, and I guess that's for one of the reasons why Pride Month is so important, is that visibility is one of those angles, and I think it is currently that there is, I guess, a feeling that, well, why do you need this visibility? Why is visibility so important? And what you've articulated there, especially in terms of helping people with HIV and knowing that there is support there for them, you need to have the visibility of the communities that are being affected by HIV, and in the same way, sort of showing those different intersectionalities within a work environment is also important for us to be able to show that we've got a diverse group of people that we are representing as part of the network. And I think for me, some of those things are also challenges that I reflect on in wanting to represent those voices as Pride Chair, because it's very easy to have the sort of the white gay men and the white lesbian women all sort of surrounding me and not have any sexual identities represented. I think one of the most exciting things that happened to us when we were setting up this the network was that the trans community very quickly reached out, and it was incredible how they rallied their voices, and very quickly we had a number of people interacting with the network that were giving us their views, their opinions, and what they didn't like, which for me is always some of those things that's the most important thing. I think people say, oh, well, that's the way they've written to you or the way that they've interacted with you. But for me, that's always been one of the things that I would rather have someone have an opposing viewpoint, say this isn't good, so that I can then say, tell me what good looks like, so that I can learn from that. Because I think there's also a responsibility that you're expected to know, I suppose, everything about every letter and every LGBTQIA plus identity, which of course I don't, and I would never claim to do that. But what I can do is be the best voice for those people, I guess. So Pride Month for me, from a personal perspective, I think it's very different to what it is from my day job as well as my Pride committee job. What does Pride mean to you, Eugene, on a personal level?
I think Pride means a few different things. If I think back to the first time I went to an LGBTQ plus Pride, it was Dublin Pride. I was probably about 16 or 17 at the time. I remember being both excited and terrified, and I think I was out to my parents at that time, but, still not necessarily wanting people to see me as being a member of the community. But it was great kind of being in those spaces and among people. That for me was a real kind of watershed moment, a real kind of turning point, because I kind of found my tribe, I found, my community and that sort of thing. And as I kind of look back over the far too many years since then, probably about 20, there are lots of things that have changed for me personally. So in my old job, I was out at work. People knew that I was in a relationship. I've been in a relationship for 16 years with my partner, Tim. But I realized looking back on it that I wasn't bringing my whole self to work. I was, I thought I was an out, proud, gay person. But there was a lot I was suppressing, and there was a lot of things I was doing, just like changing my mannerisms or my voice or, various different things to try and, blend into the background as much as possible. What I've discovered that, I was diagnosed with HIV in 2013. I tried to keep that hidden. That kind of compounded all of those things. I've had a lot of coming outs in the process, both in terms of coming out about my sexual orientation, about my HIV status, and that was a long journey for me, coming to terms with living with HIV, talking about it to people, getting a lot of support around it, including from the Terrence Higgins Trust, and then getting into recovery from drug and alcohol problems that I was having, that I was using to self-medicate. So for me, there's been a lot of shame along the way that I've been carrying, shame about my sexual orientation, shame about my HIV status. And Pride for me is kind of casting that off and kind of being, as much as possible and as an authentic way as possible, being who I truly am. And I'm still discovering that. And last year I came out as non-binary. I'm still working out what that means for me and stuff like that. But I feel like I'm in a place now where I'm able to explore that in a kind of honest and open way. And for me, Pride is about having the space to be able to do that and to be able to figure out who you are and to authentically be that person, rather than trying to be someone you're not or trying to suppress kind of aspects of yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting that your reflective piece there, and I would say that for me, that's Pride on a personal level is that reflection, because you do look back at the person that you were, why that person became this person. And I think looking at how difficult it is just to justify that in your mind as you're growing up. I mean, as I said, I came out when I was 19. I knew for many years before that I was gay. I didn't know that it was being gay, but I knew that there was something that wasn't connecting. It just wasn't right. And from that moment, you then start to, I suppose, try and assimilate what is, you were talking earlier about your mannerisms and your, what am I demonstrating to people that I'm gay? This isn't good, because, you're hearing in your own household. I remember the TV was on and, Julian Clary was on in the back, and it's like your dad's there sitting there going, oh, Julian Clary, and just switching over because it's Julian Clary. And you're just like, that's me, that I'm that person. And I, not that I would identify with Julian Clary, but you're in that same space, and suddenly it's like, well, I can't show this, I can't be this person, and so that's really hard. And it coming to this stage in my life now, where I am exceptionally happy with where I am. Friends around me, I lost very few friends. I was very lucky coming out, and my parents, my relationship with my parents is stronger than ever. So I am morbidly aware that I am very, very lucky to have that support network around me, but so many people don't have that, and I think that's why things like Terrence Higgins Trust, when people are needing that outreach, it is so important, isn't it, for people to be able to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I think back to kind of how my experience of Pride has changed over, say, 20 years, at first it was like scary and new and exciting, and then it became sort of like, yeah, we're doing this every year and it's great, and it felt like things were always getting better. We were getting new laws, gay marriage became a thing, and all of these things, the march of progress seemed to be going in one direction.
Yeah.
And for me now, Pride is going back to being a bit more of a protest. I feel like things have changed. There are certain parts of the community that are under attack in the way that gay men were under attack during the AIDS crisis in the 1980s. We're seeing a lot of the same headlines now being recycled or coming forward, particularly around trans and non-binary people and trans women in particular. And for me, that adds a sense of kind of urgency and importance to Pride that maybe for me personally it hadn't had like 5 years ago when I was just going out and celebrating and everything was great. It's like now we need to get back to the point where we're fighting again for the community.
Yeah, it's such a strange dynamic, isn't it? I agree. I think the consecutive Pride events, it was just celebration on celebration. I remember when the gay marriage law was passed in 2013 for the UK, and it was just shortly before for Ireland. But I can just remember, Ian and I for years had been sort of saying, look, civil partnership's not for us. It just doesn't feel like the two of us, if marriage ever came in, and then suddenly it was a reality. But I know that speaking to a lot of my straight friends, that passage seems to have accelerated so fast. And yet now here we are, as you say, in a position where we're now facing some of those same issues with other areas of our community. And perhaps even more so, the violence and hatred and everything that is being stirred up around sort of trans spaces and females versus female spaces. It feels like those discussions are getting so much more heated, and it doesn't help that society seems to be more and more polarized around those events anyway. So it's just very interesting to see that journey. I think from a business perspective, from my perspective, the network over Pride Month is more about celebration. It is more about awareness. It is more about education, because I think all of those visibility things, the time to talk about it is now. Whilst everybody can see a rainbow flag around them, it is great to be able to have a debate and talk to people about it. But I think, again, business feels like it's got that edge around it as well. I was talking to you about some of the challenges of starting up the network internally, which now we are well underway with. We obviously had to jump through a few barriers. We wanted to really make sure that we were a voice for the LGBT community in Next before we started going outward facing, which we did a couple of years ago, and started to change the branding on our website, on our main brand website, and on our Life at Next channel, which is our social channel. We started to brand those up, but that in itself starts to have a negative connotation from the outside world. That view of looking in at a brand that is, oh, well, you're just doing this to pride wash, and you're just doing this to virtue signal, and there's nothing of substance behind it. And it was really important that there was something of substance behind it. But I think this year there seems to be yet another shift with corporations, even if they are well supported and understood, that there is this negative backlash towards it. And I think that could come down to commerce, could come down to the polarization. But why is it important with things like our how do you see that, I suppose, from working with corporations like ourselves who are doing these sort of things? How does that sit?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a huge difference between, organizations that will put a pride flag on their logo during Pride Month, and that's almost become an expectation. It's become the norm, or they might, sell things that have rainbows on them during Pride Month, and sometimes they'll engage with charities, LGBT organizations, but sometimes that can feel very transactional. Whereas I think the partnership that we've developed has gone a lot deeper than that, and it's also lasted throughout the year. So it's not just about Pride Month. As part of our program, we've done talks for the employees at Next several times over the last couple of years, not just during Pride Month, also around World AIDS Day and different times of the year and stuff. And I think that's really important. That kind of authentic connection and the authentic relationship with the community, the ongoing kind of engagement with the community is really, really important. And then when times get hard, when it's difficult to do these things because there's some kind of backlash or there's some kind of difficult discourse that's happening in the media, you can kind of see which organizations are kind of scaling back or thinking, oh, this is getting a bit controversial, it's not as fun as it used to be. So we're gonna take a step back, and that's not what we're seeing with organizations like Next. It's a real commitment, and it's sometimes easy to do these things when times are easy, but it's really important to do them when times are getting harder.
Yeah, I remember I said to you earlier, one of the things when I set this up was I'd got many friends in the store management network, and I remember sort of going, oh, we've got the network, it's up and running, and it was very much like, oh, this is, too little too late, Andrew. I mean, I remember having conversations with the store manager in Brighton about his windows, and we never dressed them for Pride, and it was this ongoing thing that we're almost like looking like the most homophobic brand on the high street, because everyone you can imagine in Brighton, I know THT go down there every year, it looks because we don't put that out in our forward facing. But I think part of that was because, as I said, we had to make sure we were doing the do, as it were, behind the scenes. We couldn't just face that out into the world, which a lot of companies did at the time. But now, as you say, that sort of rhetoric starts coming back, and it is really important, I think, to continue that journey that we talked about. I mean, we're now third Pride Month for us. Obviously, we're going 4 years, which is great. We've got our Pride at Next Day, so we've rallied everyone on the last Friday of the month. So that's the 30th. Raising awareness. All of the locations you've been walking around head office today, we're pretty dressed and ready for Pride. And also we'll be dressing the shop windows of the major cities throughout the UK and Ireland for their Pride events, to really sort of celebrate not only Pride but also the amazing product, which links me very nicely to the T-shirt that you are wearing today for us. Would you like to describe this amazing product we've launched for Pride Month?
Yeah, so I think there's a T-shirt, there's a tote bag, and there's also a lapel pin.
Yeah, I'm wearing the pin very nicely nestled into my
And you've got
red ribbon.
You've got kind of rainbow colors in the shape of the word love. It is, I love it. It's really kind of bright and colorful. And, you know, again, we were talking about visibility. There's nothing more visible than this. It's really great. And I believe it's available online right now.
It is literally today. The t-shirt, we were just waiting for the t-shirt. Everyone has been saying, and apologies for the delay. We really did want it ready for the 1st of June, but yes, it's just dropped today. We're really excited about it. It's had such a good response already, and in fact, even with the images, people have been saying, "When is it? When can I get my hands on it?" So you can, in fact, get your hands on it today. So all of our internal networks have advertised that, and as you said, it is live on the website today. So the design has been designed by Renna, who is one of our committee members on the Pride team. She's been with us right from the beginning. And she's the one that's been responsible for all of our branding, all of the branding that you see around us. So yeah, you can see her passion in her design. So I'm super excited about that. So and obviously the best thing about this is that 100% of the profits are going to Terrence Higgins Trust, which is fantastic. So yes. Is there a plea to everybody that you want to go out and
it's amazing.
Get their purses out and
it's summertime, it's getting bright, you know, this is perfect summer wear. So, you know, I would say, you know, if you're updating your wardrobe for summer, this is the thing to get. And Pride events coming up all around the UK and Ireland. You know, get your t-shirt. You know, we've talked earlier on about like the things that enables us to do as an organization. You know, so you're really supporting a really great cause.
It's fantastic. I'm so excited about it because literally I think this is it just represents both brands so well. It's obviously marked up for THT as well, so we've got your presence and your branding on it as well as our sort of signature and design. So I'm really excited to see how this does, and I hope it does really well for you, because obviously that is what we're about. So I'm really excited about that. So look, what's next for THT then, Eugene? What does the future look like?
Well, so the big thing for us at the moment is we're looking forward to 2030, which might seem like a long way away, but it's in terms of like public health, it's tomorrow basically. So in 2030, the aim in the UK is to eliminate new cases of HIV, so new transmissions of HIV. And we are on a trajectory that will hopefully get us there. But there's quite a lot that we need to do to kind of change to achieve those targets and to get to no new cases by 2030. And among which is tackling the stigma associated with HIV. If we don't do that, we won't be able to get there, because we know that people who fear an HIV diagnosis or who don't understand HIV properly are less likely to get a test and that sort of thing. So things that are happening right now, if you are living in an area of very high HIV prevalence in England, so those are all of London, Brighton, Manchester, Salford, Blackpool, in accident and emergency departments, when you go and get your blood taken for whatever reason, it will automatically be tested for HIV. That has been in place now for a year, and we found 2,000 people who are living with either HIV or hepatitis B or hepatitis C. It's been a huge game changer for us, and what we're trying to do is make sure that that gets rolled out to areas of high HIV prevalence next, and that it also reaches Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and Ireland as well. So that, you know, that's one of the things that's going to help us get there. But there are lots of things that we need to change between now and 2030 to really achieve those goals. It's a very ambitious target, and although a lot of the work, you know, has been done, there's a lot more we need to do. You know, I mentioned as well making sure that we get PrEP to everybody who needs it. That's going to be really, really important. And just having that conversation really openly about, you know, what HIV is, the fact that it's not, you know, something to be scared of, the fact that you can live healthily and well into old age with HIV. All of those things we need to make sure that people understand. I've been living with HIV for 10 years now. It'll be 10 years in August since my diagnosis. And I've been physically very well for that whole time. People on effective HIV medication have a normal life expectancy and crucially can't pass HIV on to their sexual partners. So that's one thing that we need to make sure that people understand and are aware of. If we can find the people who are living with HIV and don't know it, the undiagnosed, get them onto treatment, make sure that people who have been diagnosed are taking their treatment, then we can reach that 2030 goal. We can be the first country in the world as well to eliminate new cases of HIV. And it will also be the first time that we've eliminated the transmission of a virus without having a vaccine or a functional cure. So it's really exciting. It's really ambitious. It's a bit of a moonshot, which is why we get very animated when we talk about it as an organization.
So I'm seeing.
Yeah.
But it also sounds so achievable, though, Eugene. Do you know what I mean? It's just like to be talking about a date. And I know, as you say, it's a moonshot. It's kind of, you need to put your stake in the sand, because I guess for a long time without that, the danger is momentum slows down on things like this. So if you don't make those bold steps, then you can't move that forward, or it feels like you're just going along and just maintaining what you've got and everything's okay, so that's what I really admire about THT, is that sort of bold statement of putting that marker in the sand to say this is where it's going to be, and it's a visible date. I think all of us can look at that and see that as something to aim for. For people that are listening and have concerns potentially around their own sexual health and their own questions or concerns, what's your advice to them?
I would say reach out and talk to us. So you can contact the THT Direct helpline. You can find the number on our website, or if you just Google THT Direct. It's nothing to be scared of. We can talk through. I've taken a lot of these calls in my volunteer role. People have a lot of anxiety around their sexual health. Generally, we're not good as a nation at talking about sex. Let's be honest. So people, for whatever reason, might feel anxious about some aspect of their sexual health. Talking about it really helps. We speak to people over the phone and encourage them to get tests when they need them. We also sometimes have to speak to people over the phone and tell them when they haven't had a risk for HIV, but they think they might have, because lots of people still believe that HIV can be transmitted from a toilet seat or sharing cutlery or a cup or something like that. So there are some things that we need to some myths
continue.
Myths
Myths to continue to bust. Yes.
But yeah, if somebody is worried, I would say get a test. That's the crucial thing. There are lots of different ways that you can test, and there's a test finder on our website that shows you all the different ways in which you can access testing in your area. It's different depending on where you live, unfortunately, but there is always a way to get a free test for HIV, and we need to kind of increase the people's confidence around testing and making it a regular thing that you do. In the same way that you might visit the dentist every year or a couple of years, go and get a full kind of sexual health screening, just to make sure that everything's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said there were challenges around volunteering. If there's anybody listening that wants to volunteer for THT, how do they go about that?
Again, you can find volunteer roles on our website. There's lots of different ways that people can get involved. We regularly post volunteer positions on the website as well. And yeah, we need as many people as possible to kind of get behind this initiative and this momentum to eliminate transmissions by 2030. It's the thing that we're all really excited about. The other thing that we need to make sure is that we're there for people living with HIV, because we'll be living with HIV, well for a long time after 2030. So we got to keep our eyes on that. And then the other thing as an organization that we focus on is just wider sexual and reproductive health and access to services. So again, there are lots of ways that you can get involved in helping us to make sure that we can have equal access to all of those types of services as well.
That's fantastic. I'd say that a really positive outlook there, and I know that, as you said, there is a lot of hard work to do, so it's not by no means done. I think from our own network in Next, I look at that and I just think, okay, yes, we've got some milestones to hit. I don't know that I've got a marker that I can put in the sand, but it's I've certainly we are getting back into building and growing. I think one of my challenges around is increasing inclusivity, increasing diversity not only within my own committee, but the voices that we are representing and listening to. So I'm always looking for new voices to talk to us and give us their point of view, because I think without that, it's so important. I'm more than willing to sort of give airtime to people that want to sort of tell us their story, give us their voice, really. We've got 2 Pride events coming up in this year. So we are attending both Leeds Pride on the 6th of August and Leicester Pride on the 2nd of September. So if you fancy coming along to either of those, then please come and join us. And I guess longer term, it's just about building relationships, continuing the partnerships, things like our charity partnership with THT, our partnership with Stonewall, but also with the wider networking groups, because I've met some fantastic people from companies all across the UK and wider, where individuals are trying to do what we're doing, trying to reach out to their employees, trying to make their workspaces all inclusive and allow people, I guess, to bring their authentic selves to work. So for me, that is what I will continue to do, what I will continue to represent. We've got some exciting partnerships coming up with Trans in the City, and also some other established networks groups. So we're going to continue this journey, and hopefully build it into something that we continue to be proud of, and continues to act as a voice for our LGBT plus colleagues. So really exciting. Eugene, I've really enjoyed today. It's gone super fast. I didn't think we would be talking for as long as we have, but it's been really interesting. And thank you so much for sharing your stories with us and your insight. Yes, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome.